presents Narration Fixation. I'm Tommy Howell, and our guest today is Julie Hoverson, and we're going to be talking about dissecting the script, which is a topic one of our producers here at All for Geek Alliance, Jens Renneking, has suggested, and he provided me with a very detailed list of questions. And we'll get to that in a few minutes, but first, I just want to talk a little bit about, Julie, what you're doing. I know that you have 19 Nocturne Blvd, and I really enjoyed this the latest episode of Atomic Julie's Galactic Bedtime Stories. The Sorry, Wrong Dimension was just absolutely wonderful.
I love character parts. You know, that for people who don't follow me, 19 Nocturne Blvd is my full audio drama, which is currently on hiatus, but has almost 90 episodes sitting on the website that people can go listen to, as well as Fatal Girl and Bingo the Birthday Clown and a bunch of other shows. Atomic Julie's Galactic Bedtime Stories, though, is me reading old sci-fi stories that have passed into public domain. And I find them on Project Gutenberg, which is an awesome resource.
Right. Yeah, the first episode of Narration Fixation was about doing public domain works from Gutenberg, but mostly for LibriVox. So what you're doing is very similar to that.
Yeah, except I can use music and do what I want.
Oh, yes.
But so, yeah, that's just, I try to keep that coming out so that people know that I'm still out here and that eventually 19 Nocturne will come back, even though at the moment I'm very busy with audiobook work, like paid.
Okay. Yes. So, are you finding the royalty share feasible? I mean, is it paying enough to keep doing it?
I'm doing well, but it's partly what books you select.
Okay.
I mean, it really does make a difference. If you go into the best mindset to go into working with ACX and Audible is if you go in there going, I'm going to do some books, I'm going to get some experience, I might make some money.
Yeah. I mean, so I've been doing it for 4 months, 5.
Mm-hmm.
My first book went live just after Thanksgiving, and I have made maybe $60 from 4 different. The 4th book just went live a couple of weeks ago.
It totally depends on the audience, the genre, the length. I mean, I've done from mid-August until the end of 2013, I did 50 short stories.
Oh, wow.
So, I made it up in quantity.
Okay.
Working under a variety of names depending on the genre.
Oh, sure. So I just uploaded and said I'm done on one of those with a different name. So we'll see how that works. Okay.
But
so
yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Go ahead and tell us some more about the shows you have on Nocturne, and so what's good to listen to on there. I probably listened to a couple things, but I started chatting with you about a month ago, and I don't remember what else I've listened to.
Well, 19 Nocturne Blvd itself is an anthology series, so it's sort of like Twilight Zone for audio, though there are recurrent characters who show up in multiple episodes throughout the series. We have sub-series of the Lovecraft 5, which is incredibly popular. It's basically 5 Lovecraft characters who tell stories from Lovecraft, sort of. You have to listen to it to know what it is. They're really good. They're a way of getting some of Lovecraft's less adaptable stories into a form that works. Then B&B Investigations is a 1940s hard-boiled detective serial, except it happens to be set in the world of fairy tales, and B&B are Beauty and the Beast. We also have the weekly, what is it? It's not the Weekly World News, it's the Weekly World Bugle. There's 3 episodes involving reporters for a tabloid newspaper. It's just various things. It just depends on what I felt like writing, what I felt like doing a serial sequel to.
So you're doing a lot of the writing for that. You're not just using other people's work. Okay.
I've done adaptations, but it's all my writing, whether it's adapting or not.
Well, so that ties in with some of the questions Jens sent. So you're analyzing and rewriting, reworking, editing. And he said tonal changes if you adapt someone else's work, editing someone else's script. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I adapt from stories. I don't work from scripts, other people's scripts. So, but I can talk about a lot of the things that you need to do when you're working on something like that. And the kind of things, even more importantly, when you're editing yourself. Because a lot of us out here who are doing audio or anything in one form or another, anything where we're independent, a lot of times you're ending up trying to edit yourself, which is harder than trying to edit somebody else. If that helps at all. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Okay. Hang on just a second.
Hmm?
Okay. So adapting a story to a script because you're doing audio drama.
Mm-hmm.
What all's involved with that besides just picking out all the dialogue?
Well, no, the first thing is to figure out. Is to find a good story. I mean, obviously, not all stories are going to work. People think they will. People are always like, "Oh, you should do this story." I'm like, that story takes place all in the head of one character. That's a monologue. That's not a story. That's not a drama. Or one where everything is visual. Unless you want to have somebody narrating everything, you have nothing to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's difficult for audio specifically, picking out a story to adapt. I've adapted some really awkward stories, let me tell you. I have one that I adapted from Jorge Luis Borges, which is the one thing that is actually in copyright and I pay royalties on that I've adapted.
Oh my.
Borges, Borges is difficult. He's way harder than Lovecraft. But when I was reading the story in the first place, it started to write itself in my head. That's why, in some ways, I'm a bad source for this sort of information, because I just do things. But I have actually studied like screenwriting and stuff, so I can help from a technical point of view anyway.
Okay.
Well,
Go ahead.
So the first thing to do is find something with a good story. I mean, a story that you can functionally do, and it takes experience to know how long it's going to end up being and how well you can get past the rocky patches. Let me take one that I did really recently. It's actually one of the most recent ones on my episodes page called, I call it Duplicity. Okay. The story is an O. Henry story called The Duplicity of Hargreaves. And this is one that I adapted fairly straightforwardly. The original story by O. Henry, it's a great story, but due to being written in a time period, it involves issues that are hot button issues right now, dealing with racism.
Oh, okay.
And so, because I really liked the story, I turned around and turned it into a sci-fi story with aliens, so that I removed the hot button parts.
But it's still.
But I can still keep the framework and the story itself.
Right. Don't you have to deal with some of that with Lovecraft also?
You do, but a lot of that you can get past. And actually, one thing that I love about doing the Lovecraft 5 versions of the Lovecraft stories is because I've got these 5 guys who basically get together and sit around and talk to each other. It's, even though somebody is telling a story, the other guys are constantly interrupting or adding their little 2 cents worth, and they each have different opinions on things. So that if one character says, "Oh, such and such," another one goes, "Wow, you really think that?" Or, technically it's been shown that people of different races are not that different, or something, and that way I can talk about the issue. We can actually debate the issue, though I do try to keep it in a 20s, 30s mindset for generally.
Okay.
But
so you kind of keep the cultural context of that, but kind of reflect.
But I can address it, and that's one of the things that's nice about doing it with these guys. Oh gosh, I totally forgot my other big main series, of course, is The Dead-Eye Kid, which is my Western, speaking of historical periods.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other set
of
issues.
It's been such a long time. Yeah, and, but I mean, the Dead-Eye Kid is really good. A lot of people really like it. See, I can write in any genre. one of my weird points too. Pretty much any genre.
Well, tell us about
turned
that.
an
I haven't listened to any of those.
Oh, you got to listen to him. I also did my Western is a little bit weird, and I don't want to give away any spoilers, but it's basically the Deadeye. It's your standard. The Deadeye kid is a reformed gunslinger trying to make up for his wicked ways by helping people, and he's traveling with this British travel writer, Clarence Fanshawe, and so it's an interesting, buddy movie kind of vibe also. And it really does explore a lot of stuff as it goes on.
So, weird Western,
yeah.
Some supernatural or sci-fi-ish elements without being
just a touch of the supernatural.
Okay.
That I don't want to go into any depth because it'll totally spoil it.
Spoilers.
We'll just say ghosts, okay? We'll just say ghosts.
Okay. Okay, that's okay.
Easy. And but that's one where it's a treat to work on because I've got great actors also. Well, okay, one of them's me, but I'm in a lot of my series. But that's the way you write it. A lot of times it's vanity press. Stick your vanity right in there.
Well, sure. So
but, sorry, go ahead.
I was talking to Gwendolyn a couple of weeks ago, and she is not usually the star of the stuff that she produces, so she stays in the background. So, but do you like to be more front and center, or do you write specifically for yourself, or do you just find, oh, that character would be good for me after you've been writing it a while?
Some characters I wrote specifically for myself, but I also write a lot of stuff that I specifically hand off to other people. Okay. I mean, there's been characters who I'm like, okay, no way I'm handing this one off, so I'm going to write 3 good scripts and give them to 3 of my other actresses so that nobody can complain. No.
There you go.
I mean, obviously, with the Lovecraft 5, it's 5 gentlemen, so, there isn't really much for me in there. Okay. And, but, yeah. Originally with the Plain Jane series, which is a Victorian adventuress with lots of creepy supernatural stuff, I wasn't originally going to play Annie, the sidekick, but everybody I tried to hand Annie to fell through. So finally I was like, darn it, I'm just going to do it myself. And now I'm Annie. And we've got a mini-series for that's been recorded, and we just haven't had a chance to do the editing on. So editing is what takes all the time in the world. I mean, sound editing.
Yeah, that seems to be the common thread with everybody that I've talked to. I mean, Stevie Farnaby and Gwendolyn, and now you.
Yep.
That's where everything stops.
Take the time it takes to do an audiobook, and then multiply it by about 8.
Or however many characters you have.
No, it's got nothing to do with how many characters you have. It's like, it's mixing the characters, it's getting all your text readings done by the characters, it's finding all your sound effects and picking out all your music and play it. It just takes so much more time for all the different things. I mean, that's one reason audiobooks is like a vacation, is because it's straightforward, one voice, mono, no effects, no shifting of the voice around. I mean, admittedly, I'm doing multiple voices for, but it's all me. I don't have to wait for somebody else to get off the pot and get their stuff in. And, I mean, if I may plug,
oh, right.
One of the audiobooks I'm doing right now for Audible, that'll come out in about a month, hopefully, 6 weeks, is Jake Bible's Dead Mech, which is an epic of zombies and giant robots. It's the first book of a trilogy, and it's huge to start with, and the trilogy is just huge. And it's got like almost 24 main characters that I have to juggle that are all me. And that's why I like doing the audiobooks, is it's the challenge of doing all these voices. I mean, and obviously they're all me. It's not like I'm trying to convince people it's different actors.
Right.
But you have to keep them straight enough, especially in something with such a huge cast, that when people hear the voice, they can go, okay, that's that character. Okay, I'm in this scene over here. Because this one jumps back and forth a lot in a very cinematic way. I knew there was a word.
So when you do different voices like that, do you turn the manuscript into a script and then record each character individually, or do you switch back and forth while you're recording, or a little bit of both?
Oh gosh, I usually switch back and forth, though there are a few characters that I'm going back and replacing, particularly small roles, just for consistency, because sometimes when you do somebody in chapter 1 and then chapter 20, you're like, oh, I can't remember what they sounded like. I don't have time to go back and listen now, you know. So then you just replace them later if
Okay.
you have to. But yeah, for the most part, actually for this one particularly, I don't do it for all books. I actually put myself together a cast list of like a star. I picked famous people for each of the parts, not to impersonate them, but just to keep those in my head as a reminder of where I was with that voice. And it's like, how would Donald Sutherland say this line? How would Fred Ward say this line? And I have it. I gave it to all the people who are helping me edit it so that they could also keep track of who's who. I mean, because it's so much easier to go, okay, wait, which character was Harlow? Oh, okay, Angelina Jolie, got it.
Uh-huh.
You know?
It's funny. I did that in my most recent book. I had a character that I thought, okay, this guy sounds like C-3PO. He's just kind of pompous and arrogant and just a little bit stuffy.
Uh-huh.
And so that was in my mind when I was reading. It's like, okay, you're C-3PO.
Oh, well,
But he was a human.
in the third book of the Dead Mechs, one of the characters, after reading one scene with it, it started in my head being Christopher Walken, so I got to work up a Christopher Walken by then.
Oh, there you go. I haven't really tried to do much impersonations. One of the books I was reading recently, I felt like the character was Australian, and so I tried to put in an Australian accent, and that was kind of tricky. So
Yeah, like I said,
I
I'm
can
not.
almost
Hmm?
go
Like I
ahead.
said, I'm not really doing impersonations. It's really more just an attitude, so that I can help keep all my attitudes separately.
Okay,
But anyway, back to scripts.
scripts, yes.
And, well,
So,
for self-editing, if I may mention,
oh
I
yes,
mean, because most of us are editing ourselves. I mean, it's most of us don't have a crew or actual, pay anybody to edit us or whatever. Um, the best tips I have for people who are doing self-editing are set it aside for a week and go back and read it. Because if you read it right away, you're going to read what you thought you wrote.
yeah,
And
kill your
find
darlings.
what? And
There's
find
an expression, "Kill your darlings," that's
well, there's
related to
that,
that.
but also find somebody who you can read it aloud to.
Okay,
Because there are times when you won't realize how awkward things you wrote are until you actually are speaking them to somebody, and then you know which lines need to be rewritten. In screenwriting, some of the things that they teach you that are major for editing purposes are that are really really helpful. Actually, I mean, you carries over really are things like, when you start writing, you want to have your end in sight. You want to know where your plot is going so that you don't wander. But when you come back, and it also helps if you have a spine to your storyline that you can follow. It's like, okay, where do I need to get next? Okay, I'm going to go there. Okay, where do I need to get next? It's like a map. It's like a connect the dots, actually. You have each thing should get you from one dot to the next. But the biggest thing is every single scene in the story should either advance the plot, advance the character development, or advance the world, the setting, in some way. And you need to look at each scene in there, and if it doesn't do one of those three things, if it's just filler, if it's just something, get rid of it. Just dump it. It's not important.
right.
I mean, it can advance characters, but if it doesn't advance characters, if it's just two of them, chit-chatting about nonsense. I mean, if it's foreshadowing, then that's advancing the plot. If it's giving you the setting, that's advancing the world. But you got to really look at it. If you can do all three in every single scene, that's the best. So, another thing is that every scene should itself have a beginning, middle, and an end. I mean, it's, every full scene. Admittedly, we cut back and forth and we do whatever we do, I mean, it's all for dramatic impact. But, each scene in a story, in the overall thing, should go somewhere and have a definitive ending. One of the things that, and try to get rid of anything that's not actually moving the story. In other words, if you actually take a scene, and if you cut off the first line and the last line of the scene and read it, and it still makes sense, then you didn't need those lines. Cut off the first line and the last line again, read it again, see if it makes sense. If your scene starts with, "Hey, how are you?" "Hi, I'm fine. How's your mom?" "My mom's great." Unless that's actually vital to the story, or you're using it as a pacing thing, because you can do things, I mean, there's stylistic things like, I mean, if your scene starts from that and then suddenly, and it escalates into something really horrible, then you need the banality to balance the horrible, maybe.
Right.
But you gotta think about it.
That made me think of the movie Truman, the Truman Show, where Jim Carrey kept saying, "Good morning, and if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night." And that kind of became an important part of knowing what was going on in the show.
Yeah, see, then it's a device. Then it's used. It's
Right.
not just something there because the writer didn't think of anything else. Another thing, okay, this is something I have to harp on because people do this a lot. Introduce your characters. I mean, when you first see them, when they first appear, find a way to get their name in there. And then try not to use it again until at least halfway through the script, unless there's because I know people who are like, "Hey Jim, how you doing? Jim, I was wondering where you were, Jim. Jim, were you the Jim? Were you at the gym, Jim?" And they'll use the character because they think because it's audio, you can't remember who it is. Oh, there is a brilliant, scathing breakup of audio. Have you ever heard of Big Finish?
That's the British company that does the Doctor Who stories?
Yes. They also did a series of Sapphire and Steel. And this is going to be a spoiler for one of the episodes in it, but I love this, okay? One of the episodes, I think it's like the first one in season 3 or something, I'm totally wrong on that, I'm sure, it's called The Mystery of the Missing Hour. Doesn't matter if you know what Sapphire and Steel is at all, apart from they're sort of time and space travelers. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
But the episode starts completely different from anything else in the series. It starts with some dude narrating his life and going to Cairo for an archaeological dig and all this. And now, Sapphire and Steel, up to this point, has been one of the most tight, brilliantly written things ever, and this is meandering crap. and the people, once they get introduced, they say each other's names all the time, and they mention where they are a lot. It's like, "Oh, I'm so glad I caught you here in the lobby of the hotel." And I mean, and the descriptive phrases that are used are like beaten into your head. "Oh, what nice white walls. I'd hate to see blood all over them." I mean, just nonsense. And it's not till and when Sapphire and Steel show up, they're in a different persona as these detectives. And ultimately in this story, Steel realizes they're trapped in a bad radio drama.
Oh.
And it is deliberately badly written so that there's these bad descriptive phrases, and that the characters are constantly calling each other by name and constantly talking about where they are, because you couldn't possibly keep track of where they are otherwise. And it's so awesome.
I think the latest book I read had that problem in the book. The two main characters were mentioned by name all the time.
Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate, but that is one of the things that people fall into, because you don't underestimate the audience and think you have to give them this data all the time. A lot of times, if you have a setting that's used a lot, like, a hotel lobby, you give it a sound. You put some music in the background, put some sound in there, something that's like, "Ding, hi, can I help you?" Something like that, and you can just use that the next time you come back to the same place, because the audience remembers that. it's only been, unless you're doing something that's 25 hours long and it's too long for them to remember, you can easily keep track of that.
Right.
People do pick that stuff up. And I mean, you can mention something once, or if you have to. The other thing is, people spend too much time worrying about what their characters look like, trying to slip in a physical description. If there's what?
Unless it's important to the story, you don't need to go through that.
Exactly. That's another thing you can just cut right out, because unless somewhere in the story somebody's going to go, I'm looking for that woman, the redhead, or oh, there was, or if you're doing something like in my B&B investigations, where it's a private eye, it's a private eye homage, so the voiceovers and that sort of descriptiveness is part of the genre. It's like she slid into the room like a slip and slide with red dress on or whatever, Okay, not quite like that.
Right.
Or there's one, I have to say, there's a show called I think it's, I hope I'm quoting the right one. It's Alphabet City, Troubles Up in Alphabet City. And there was a line in it that was like, she walked into the room like a snake on legs, if a snake could walk, and if it had legs. I mean, it was one of those lines where it was just bad, but beautifully bad. It's deliberately funny. It's that kind of show. Troubles Up in Alphabet Town? Crap. I wish I could remember the name. Sorry.
Okay.
I love detective stories, good or bad. I know I've wandered, but I hope I've given you some script editing help.
Oh, sure. And I'm not particularly a writer. If I do any writing, it's like technical procedure writing.
That's tricky in its own way.
I've written maybe 3 pieces of fiction in the last 20 years, and they're all about 10 years apart. So
that's okay.
That's about how much I get to do any writing.
All right, give me another question. Let's go off on another tangent.
So, well, I know, So, one of the questions Jens asks is, what should my readers know, feel, or do after reading?
Know, feel, or do. Interesting.
That's one of the questions he asks. He tries to ask about his own writing for business writing. So, do you have a goal like that for a script, for how people should feel, or should they call to action or anything like that, or
one of the things
to learn something?
I'm not so much of a teaching person. I mean, I'm not trying to impose an agenda of conveying information into the fiction. Though I do try to use as much historical as I can, because I like messing with people. I have a joke in one of the Lovecraft 5 episodes. Like I said, it's set in the 20s or 30s, and it's an episode adapting From Beyond, which is a classic Lovecraft story. And it deals with this machine, and the one of the characters says, "Oh, that machine is evil," and the scientist who's telling the story, Herbert, he says, "Machines can't be evil. It's just, that's illogical." And the artist Richard says, "I can name an evil machine. Of course there's evil machines." And Herbert's like, "Oh, really? Name one." And Richard goes, "Tammany Hall." And we'll just see how many people actually get that without having to Google it.
Tammany Hall. Oh. Boss Tweed. That's a whole different kind of machine.
Yes, but it's still a machine, and that's the joke.
Yes.
A political machine. He's the type who'll pull that kind of comment. And that's part of the fun of writing these 5 characters, is they've got very different attitudes, and if I want to get something across, I'll be like, "Oh, wait, who would say that? Oh, that would definitely be Richard. Oh, that would definitely be Warren, who is the anthropologist, or that would be Edward, who's the writer of fiction, or that would be Charles, who's the rich dilettante." And it's been a lot of fun. But it's nice because I'm not afraid to put in things that I know nobody's going to get until they go Google it. So maybe I am trying to educate people. I don't know. But no, really, for me, I want people to feel that the story is satisfying, which it's going to be different depending on the story. Some stories are going to be, you know, a romance, oh, they're together, yay, or some are going to be a tragedy, oh my gosh, what just happened? One of the ones that I put out recently, at the end of it, you don't really quite know what happened, but you can guess, and it's really horrible. And it's like, oh crap, at the end. And it's a unique story because I told it entirely in answering machine messages.
Oh.
Yes.
There are
And yet,
42 messages.
there's a lot of messages. I don't think I even count. I think they're like 130. But
Oh,
it's
wow.
it doesn't have to be realistic. It just has to be plausible. And but it's on an answering machine, not a voicemail, because it is actually being fast forwarded and listened to. It's set in the 80s.
Okay.
And but yeah, it's my gosh. I mean, and I reinforce the idea of it being set in the 80s through things like, you know, phone calls from the video store, and
Well, you know, an old, you know, analog phone ringing, and
no, this is somebody listening back through messages, so the phone
okay.
doesn't actually ring anywhere in it. But I've also got 80s-ish music playing on a radio across the room, and I've got, you know, things like, you know, that sort of thing, just all the way through, and it's really kind of it's interesting.
So
It's
tape
also
winding and
trying
things
to
like
remember
that. Okay.
what slang was in the 80s that I could use.
Totally gnarly, right?
Yeah.
So I know you have done some work on other audio dramas like Aftermath, right? You had a big part on that for Yap Audio.
And I just won one of the Audioverse awards that Gwendolyn masterminded for my role as Agent Jules Kircher in Edict Zero.
Okay. So how much input do you have on the script there?
Oh, almost nothing. I mean, for those ones, I'm an actor. If I read everything and notice that there's something flawed, I'll point it out.
Okay.
Actually, I'll point that out when I'm doing the audiobooks too. I've messed with a couple of authors, but I mean, I can't say I've messed with them. But it's things like, wait a minute, if she's sitting like this, how can she grab that? It was a fight scene.
Right.
Otherwise, that could have sounded dirty. And or there was one where it was just, you know, usually I'll just correct typos, but once in a while I'll ask them, did you really mean this?
Right. But sometimes it's obvious what they meant to write, you know.
Yeah.
There,
Well,
there, and there, two and two.
oh, that. But if they make a mistake enough times, I'll actually let them know. I'll be like, hi. Yeah, make do is D-O, not D-U-E. But yeah. So, you know, well, I mean, I figure, you know, if your computer's doing it or whatever, then you at least want to know that it's not supposed to be that way.
Right.
That's the glory of indie press that can be published instantly on Kindle these days. Everybody can get published on Kindle. And the horrible thing is that everybody can get published on Kindle. It's pretty much the same philosophy I have about audio drama. It's great, anybody can make audio drama. It's horrible, anybody can make audio drama.
Okay. So let's go back to one of these questions here. What differentiates a script from other sorts of texts?
Well, for audio specifically, I'll address this because, I mean, there is a huge difference between an audio script versus a screenplay versus a play.
Okay.
In general, one of the ways to differentiate those three from each other is a play is mostly about talking with some action. A movie is mostly about visuals with some talking. And an audio drama is obviously just about talking. But the thing is, with a script with an audio drama, all you have is what's on the page. All you have is what's being said. Unless you're going to give people deep internal monologues for whatever reason, if it's like fits your genre or whatever, like the Private Eye genre, or I've got an anime series that I do where, I mean, anime typically has those long moments where somebody's musing. But unless you're going to do that, all you have to demonstrate character is what they're actually speaking and how they speak. And you don't have the, because in a book, you've got, oh, he looked at her and thought about this and wondered if such and such. And, I mean, in audio, you either have to turn that into him talking to himself or talking to somebody else. Sorry, cat's in my face. And or leave it out. And so when you rebuild characters in audio, you've got to change them so that they demonstrate. There's an axiom for screenwriting, which is show, don't tell.
Right.
It's like, don't tell me this character is interesting. Make the character interesting. It doesn't matter how many times other people go, oh, he's so romantic. If he doesn't come across as romantic, then they come across as stupid.
Right.
And it's huge. And there's brilliant moments in certain. I'm going to segue for a moment into something. I'm not a fan of this movie, even though I can admit it's a brilliant movie. The movie The Graduate.
Oh, right.
I sat down and watched it, and half my mind's going, and the other half of my mind's going, this is excellently written. Sorry to anyone who's a fan of The Graduate. But there's a scene in it, the best scene, the brilliant, incredible scene. And it's not the one you're thinking of. No, it's not the leg scene. No, it's the one where what's his face? I can't remember any of the characters' names, but Dustin Hoffman.
Right.
Comes in, and he's having an affair with Mrs. Robinson. And Mr. comes in to take her daughter on a date. And Mr. Robinson, the husband, is there. And he says to Hoffman, what are you drinking? And Hoffman says, I don't remember the exact words, but he says, I'll have a scotch. And the guy goes, whiskey it is, and pours him a whiskey and hands it to him. And right there it shows you how utterly oblivious the husband is to anything, anybody else's wishes or needs. And it's beautiful. That moment is show, don't tell. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. Let's see. What else? Is there anything else you have in your back pocket that you want to share with us about writing, about the script?
Well, personally, one of the things that I find the most that helps the most is when you make interesting characters. When you make characters that are good characters, full-rounded characters. I hate using the word strong characters because it's so misused when people are talking about strong female characters. It's because people mistakenly think, hey, at least you got one of your own too. Mine's quiet. But they mistakenly think when we say strong characters, we mean characters who are physically strong and aggressive, rather than characters that have a strength built into the character. But when you make good characters, well-rounded characters, they have of their own, and they help you write the story. They also are part of what's going to make it engaging for the audience and for the actors. There is nothing harder than taking a tedious character that has absolutely nothing for you to hold on to and trying to make it interesting. And this is something I come across in audiobooks a lot. It's like, how many times can you say basically the same words, like, oh, yes, that would be lovely. I would really like some of that, blah, 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 blah. And it's just trying to add accents or something to give them some kind of persona.
Oh, I can so relate right now.
Yeah. I mean, we have to do it, and we have to get on with it. But at the same time, that's way more challenging than taking a character who actually has interest in them, I mean, and trying to make them fun, because they're already fun. And that's when you'll engage your actors, and they'll give you greater performances if you give them better characters.
Oh, yes. That would be helpful, too.
Oh, yeah. That's one thing I'm really enjoying about Dead Mech is the different characters in it. I mean, they really are pulling out this different voices, and it's easy to keep track. It's about It's over 12 hours long. The
Oh,
first,
wow.
and yeah, and we're still in the editing process, but which is why it's probably going to come out in about a month, I hope. Um, but um, but being able to the main characters, it's like when I'm listening back through, I'll hit a character line and I'll be like, oh, that's Matt, even before the indicator comes in. You know what I mean? It's like I'll hear myself say a line, I'll be like, that's Dr. Thermopolis, that's Rachel. And that's when you're really pleased with your performance, is when you instantly recognize all of your own performances, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's helpful. I'm still having to learn some of that, I guess, because yeah, I consistency I'm still struggling with, and
Well, that's one place that picking a iconic actor type, even if you're not impersonating them, but just for an attitude,
right.
sometimes helps. It really
Okay.
does. I don't do it often, but I did it for this one, like I said, and it's been a lot of work. But it's. Plus, I've also been doing voices since a million years of role playing games back in high school and onward. So
Oh my goodness.
it's actually also a really great testing ground for writing scripts. Oddly enough, even
I
if
have
you're not
heard that. Yeah.
even if you're not scripting, if you're writing scenarios for a role-playing game and running them, then you get instant feedback on whether your story works. I mean, you're not waiting till somebody reads it. It's like they're in the story and they're like, "Wait a minute, you said he was at the door and now he's at the window? How did that happen? That doesn't make sense." I mean, you'll instantly get feedback if something doesn't work. And that's actually really good. But yeah, that's one
Well,
reason to read it to somebody also, because you find somebody who will call you on your bull. And I have my friend who's 70. She will not stand for bull. If
well,
I'm
plus you can
writing
also
something,
have characters that just break your story. It's like, oh,
yeah,
I didn't account for that.
yeah, gaming does have a lot of uncertainty to it, but it also shows you how to be adaptable,
Right.
hopefully, or give up. But yeah, no, it's just for me, it's doing the voices as an actor is the fun part. And so when I'm writing, I write fun characters because I think of it as if I was playing every character, would I enjoy all these characters? And also another thing that is, and this is something that does sometimes happen, is you have to have conflict. Conflict doesn't have to be combat, it doesn't have to be arguing, but it does have to be people at odds with one another or something. Some kind of challenge, some kind of disagreement, some kind of viewpoints that clash. Because if your story is all happy, friendly, everybody gets along, it's Oz and there's nothing else there. Or it's a travelogue. It's like, look, here's another part of our world. It's really nice too. Look, there's happy, friendly people. I mean, there's no interest if there's no conflict.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the stories that I've been reading, not reading, but reading recently, have been, I've been on a romance kick, so it's been a lot of, oh, and the perfect guy and the perfect girl and everything is perfect. Oh, it's perfect, perfect, and he knows just how to treat her. Perfect, perfect, and it's like, it doesn't feel real and it doesn't interest me.
Yeah, this one I just read, there was a lot of conflict in it, and some of it kind of escalated a little too quickly. It's like
That's
they went on a
one of the problems inherent in your standard, well, like your chick flick romances in
yes.
general, is that penultimate argument where at the act 3 scene break, something has to break the couple up. It can also be a buddy movie does it. Buddies movies do it too.
Oh yes.
Some argument or disagreement breaks them up, and then they have, so that they can have an ultimate. It has to be a bottoming out. It has to be a ultimate final never speak to each other again moment, so that they can come back from it and rise triumphant. Should I talk about acts? I've mentioned an act 3 uh, break. Do you want
Oh,
to?
sure.
One of the things with script writing is the 3-act structure. It's for screenplays, it's very important. Screenplays are a lot more obviously regulated than audio dramas, because screenplays you have to sell to someone else. So you have to convince them, as opposed to audio dramas where you just finish it and then make it and then you find out if it's any good. But
well, I would hope you have a little more,
yeah,
a little more overhead in figuring that out beforehand, yes.
But with a screenplay, someone else is going to make it 90% of the time, unless you have a production company and a lot of money.
Right.
And so one of the things inherent in trying to sell a screenplay is doing it right. I mean, they get so many screenplays. Screenplay readers will take any excuse to toss a screenplay. Open it up, wrong font, buy. Open it up, wrong, you used colored paper, buy. Because anything you do that you think makes you stand out just tells them that you're not a professional. And so the 3-act structure is inherent in the vast majority of screenplays. And this is one of those chicken and egg scenarios. It is the 3-act structure the right way to tell a story because it feels right to the audience, or does it feel right to the audience because they've always seen stories told in a 3-act structure?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And a 3-act structure is usually, beginning, middle, end. It's like the beginning part is about the first quarter, then the second act is half of the movie, the center half, and then the third act is usually the last quarter. And the act breaks almost always correspond with a major event, as does the center point of the movie. So technically you could call it a 4-act structure, but people don't like having to rewrite their books. The center point has something, and usually it's either a horrific event or a really great event. I mean, for most dramas, I mean, one of the movies that is considered nearly perfect from most screenwriting points of view, you'll never guess what it is. Die Hard.
Like Casablanca? Oh, Die Hard. Shoot the glass.
Die Hard.
Yes.
Well, because Die Hard does everything right in so many different ways. I mean, you've got a great character. You got a few great characters. You got great villains. You got a great hero. You got some other great characters out there. I mean, almost exactly 15 minutes into the film is when the bad guys show up.
Right.
It's the whole thing is it's considered one of the examples of a perfect 3-act structure. So the idea is, you've got the intro to introduce your characters. Now, I mean, obviously we're more flexible with audio drama. We take more time to introduce our characters, or less time, depending. But if you keep that in mind, that, if you're doing an hour-long episode, by 15 minutes in, you have to have introduced your conflict, your major story conflict, whatever it is. Right there is the best time. That gives you a chunk of time to introduce and bring stuff together, and then suddenly, bam! Then as it moves forward, you can pace yourself this way and go, okay, I'm aiming for, at page 45 is where the big final finale, where we start to segue into the big finale. Okay, middle of it, there's going to be something happen, some plot twist that's going to up the ante. I think in Die Hard, isn't the middle of it when they turn off the power?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you see what I mean? It is really specifically follows these things. And the final one, I think the final act break is when the TV guy reveals his wife. And suddenly the bad guys know that his wife is in the building. So, I mean, it's just that kind of thing. I mean, those are major plot events. And each one turns the story on its head. Each one changes the game.
So pulls the story into the next act, right?
Yeah.
Keeps you
that's something to keep in mind when writing and or editing is, also another thing to think about is taking things up a notch. It's a lot of times, especially when you create characters you really like, it's really hard to do bad things to them. I mean, you'll do little bad things. It's like, oh no, he got blown off the bridge. Oh, but he's okay. It's like, well, okay, now that's a momentary bit of terror for the people who like the character. Oh, sorry, is that? I thought it was the ending or something.
No, there was an alarm on my phone.
Oh, okay. I don't know how long we go, but I can talk for hours. So I'm terrible that way. But the thing is, for pacing and stuff, I mean, how bad can it get? I mean, if you don't want to kill the character off, there are a lot of things you can do. This is another thing you learn from role-playing games. Because I was not one of those GMs who would kill people off, but I would torture the crap out of them.
There you go.
I'm not going to kill you off. Okay, you got carried off by the monster. Oh, no, I'm dead. No, you wake up in a pile of corpses. Ah, and your leg is broken. Figure out what to do.
Yeah, you have to injure them enough that they need time to recover or whatever.
Well, you inconvenience them,
Yeah.
injure them, give them harder things to deal with. Up the ante, make it more difficult. And you can slowly do that and just pile stuff on, and ultimately it gets, I mean, it doesn't mean you should do it all the time. It's not always, but it's, every time you hit something, if it doesn't feel satisfactory, if you hit okay, here's our big plot thing, he's going to fall off the bridge, okay, but he's going to be back in the next scene. What? Okay, how can we make that more dramatic? He's going to fall off the bridge, and then he's not going to show up till next episode, so everybody's going to think he's dead, including the audience. Or, he's going to fall, this is part of the ways to make things more dramatic, to make them more interesting, or the next thing we see is his body being found, but we don't know if they don't ever say if he's alive or not. We just know that, the Morlocks under the bridge found him, like in Theater of Blood, and the movie, and carried him off. Are they going to eat him, or are they going to make him their king? We don't know. Maybe he won't show up for 10 years. Who knows? That's how you deal with a character whose actor has to move out of state for a while.
And soap operas are really good at that, writing people out for a while by sending them off, to be seriously injured so they can have plastic surgery and come back.
Or killing them off and bringing back their twin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So many different ways for that. If I may plug another project I'm working on.
Oh, certainly.
Totally unrelated to any of this, but I just wanted to make sure I get it in because it's awesome. It's a second podcast. It's in a different feed because I'm working with a local small press company called Broken Eye Books.
Okay.
The podcast is thewholebehindmidnight.libsyn.com, and the book is The Whole Behind Midnight, which is a modern urban fantasy, which means there's magic and lots of cussing.
So whole with an H, not a WH.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's really cool. This is actually a full cast dramatized novel.
Oh.
We're not rewriting it into a script. We're just putting in voices and music and occasional sound effects to dramatize the novel itself. So it's like a hybrid between the audio dramas and the straight reads.
Right.
And I have actors playing all the different parts, and it's really good. I'm really pleased. The cast I've got is awesome. My lead, the narrator, it's a first-person novel, so it's all attitude. None of it is narrative exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Royden Poole, the hero, is an anti-hero. He's a bit of a shit, if I can say that, or bleep me. And but he's such an engaging character. You like him, even though there's other people you probably should like more.
Yes.
And my actor, Brian Lomatawama, has just done a brilliant job with it. He's been so much fun to work with. He's a hilarious guy to start with. He's been in a number of episodes of my show. And this was, I mean, when I started reading this and I was like, oh, I so want to do this. And I started hearing it in his voice. So I'm just the producer on this. I play occasional small roles, but for the most part, I'm just producing that one.
Okay.
And eventually we'll have it available for purchase, but right now it's coming out in about 15 minutes every other week as a podcast.
Okay. Well, since you mentioned full cast, and that's sort of where I think I want to go next on Narration Fixation, is there somebody that's doing full cast that you think I should talk to next?
I actually haven't paid a lot of attention to what else is out there as full cast, I'm afraid.
Okay, I've only got one podcast that does full cast regularly, and I guess I can email them and see if one of them will be on the show.
Yeah,
I just wanted to ask.
oh yeah, no, I'm one of those. I've just really been out of touch because I've been so busy working on all the different books that I'm doing right now, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
not been able to keep up with anything recently. I know that there's supposed to be really good full casts of some of the professional ones out there are getting very, very popular. I don't want to quote any because I don't know off the top of my head if I've got the right names, you know. But some of the things, I think I was hearing that the Game of Thrones and the Ender's Game and a couple of those were getting really big full casts.
Oh, I know that American Gods got a full cast for its 10th anniversary.
Ah,
So
there you go. But yeah, it's a lot of work, really.
yes.
It's not quite as much work as an audio drama, but it's really close.
No
I mean,
sound effects or anything like that, or music.
I do use a few sound effects. I actually
Okay.
do.
Okay.
And on music, and I mean, at least the last 3 episodes that I've had to put out, he's just been sitting in a strip club, so it's just been pretty much the same music for 3 episodes.
Set the tone, yes. Okay.
Yeah, while he talks on the phone and meets the villain and that sort of thing.
Very good.
Um, yeah, like I said, he's a bit of an anti-hero.
All right. Any last words before we tie this up?
Really, I mean, for editing yourself more than anything else, I would say the single best thing you can do is, read it aloud to somebody
Very
and
good.
try to play the characters, because that's one way you can help yourself see if you've kept the characters consistent, because that will affect the actor's performance and whether the audience likes it. Because if character's like, wait, I was mad here and then suddenly I'm all nice, what? You know, but also simply because you can get a better feel for how it flows if you're actually trying to see how it performs. You're not going to get the same feel reading it to yourself because you skim. Timing doesn't happen the same way in your head.
Right.
And having somebody listen to it forces you to pay attention to what you wrote. If you're just reading it to yourself, you might just skim through and go like this and talk about, and then, but if you're trying to perform it, then you're going to see more like what the end product comes out as.
Very good.
I hope
Well,
I've been at least a little helpful.
yeah, that's given me a lot to think about. I don't know how Jens is going to interpret all of this, but it's been helpful for me. So thanks for joining me today, Julie. This has been Julie Hoverson from 19 Nocturne Blvd. And
That's 19 nocturneboulevard.com.
very good. And thanks for joining me today on Narration Fixation.
Thanks.